I feel like the glasses are a jump scare. I scratched my cornea. Excellent. Today we're going to be talking about Red Rising. This is the first book in what I thought a cute little dystopian trilogy, and no, it's the first book in like an epic sci-fi series. So I have signed up for a much bigger project than anticipated. And I read this first book a long time ago when it first came out. And last year I started Golden Sun, and then I sort of got halfway into it and kind of fell off the bandwagon. So when I saw that Audible had the entire series for free, I downloaded all of them and I was so excited. And then I realized that those Audible stock your bookshelf days are lenders, not your own property. So at the beginning of this month, I went into Audible and I realized that all of these books are expiring at the end of May. So now I'm reading on a deadline. It's been so long since I started Golden Sun that I wanted to just go back and reread Red Rising and just try to get through it all really quickly. Which leads us here. In case you didn't know, Red Rising is a sci-fi series set on Mars. It's very dystopian, but it is our dystopian. Our characters reference Aristotle and Plato and Roman mythology. So theoretically, it's our future. The story follows Darrow, a 16-year-old boy who is living on Mars, and he is a miner. And on top of being a miner, he's a hell diver. So he is the top guy who goes deepest into the rock, does the most dangerous jobs, and he's held in really like a respected position. But he is a red, which means that it doesn't really matter if the reds respect him because they are the lowest on the totem pole. They have this really rigid, color-coded caste system. So golds are at the top, and then you have a series of colors in between them all the way down to red. And the entire red society is underground. They believe that they are making Mars habitable for the other colors to come and join them later. So my understanding is that they set up this color caste system on Earth, realized that Earth was not going to be habitable enough for everybody, and now they've sent the reds to do the hard work before they come. A little bit into the book, Darrow finds out the truth that Mars has been habitable for a long time, and he has been living this lie, being underground his entire life, pretty much acting like a slave for all the colors, but especially for the golds, who run everything. He joins a revolutionary group and tries to infiltrate the gold ranks, specifically the gold students. So he has to go into this institute that is truly brutal. This book has a very Hunger Games-esque feel to it, but it is a very interesting power dynamic, political scheme, etc. But I'm about to go into spoilers, so if you have not read this book, please go read it before continuing in this video. Goodbye. So we start off meeting Darrow, and he is the youngest helldiver ever, ? Definitely in his generation. The way that this whole thing was described, I just really imagined that Darrow lived in a giant anthill. He's never seen like the sun or grass or the sky, and he's 16. He's also married. It truly caught me off guard. But then as you're reading the book, you sort of realize that these reds lead such a physically hard life that a lot of them are probably not even gonna see 40. Like his uncle, I believe, is 38, and he's like the oldest person we meet in the red colony. He is married to a girl named Io, and it is so cute. He is in love with her. I loved reading about Io through Darrow's perspective because he's just like so enamored by her. It is the sweetest. Io's sort of a dreamer though, and she has all these ideas and plans that she wants Darrow to sort of fulfill. She sees him as a leader in their society because he is a helldiver, and he's like, people will listen to you if you start to stir up maybe some hints of rebellion. And we try to ignore it because the reds are so heavily monitored and controlled, and Darrow doesn't even put much stock into it because he's like, this is just literally never going to happen. I will not do that, and I will not risk you. But Io takes him to this orchard that she found. I don't know if they went through some sort of secret back passageway in their anthill, but she leads him to this orchard where he can see the stars and feel grass for the first time. And it's such a stark difference from what he's grown up in, but they weren't careful enough, and they're definitely not supposed to be there. So they get caught by peacekeepers, basically. That's what I imagined was the peacekeepers, and they get like brutally whipped. Darrow gets whipped first, and it's horrible to read, but it is even worse seeing him watch Io go to get whipped. Now they never have enough food, so he's questioning if she's even going to be able to make it through this. And he starts begging to take her whippings, and it was so sad to watch this. And the reason, more so than worried about whether or not she will make it, he is looking at her and realizes that she isn't sad, she isn't hurt, she is so angry. And he knows that she is going to do something reckless with that anger. And she does. I felt myself just physically deflate when Io stopped them from whipping her and she started to sing the forbidden song. It's against the law, it's considered a rebellious song, and there's a dance that goes with it, and Io starts to do that. And this is a major flashback for Darrow because his own father was killed because of this song. It was horrible to watch because it's just like we're watching a slow motion car wreck. Like, we already know Io's dead even though she's still singing and dancing right in front of us. And because Mars has low gravity, when they hang their prisoners, the family members have to go out and pull the bodies down so that the hanging is effective, or else the family member has to basically have their agony prolonged for a super long amount of time because it takes gravity that long to kill them without that extra weight. I was cringing so hard reading that because, like, I feel like in our books we read a lot of gory and messed up stuff sometimes, but this one, I don't know what it was, this one really got me, and I almost wanted to like not continue reading because I did not remember that from the first time I read this book. Probably blocked it out, but we were only a couple chapters in and I was so sad. Now, despite the fact that Io has told Darrow that she has bigger dreams for him, he is so distraught that he's just planning to die with her. He goes and takes Io's body down and takes it to the orchard to bury it, which is all treasonous. And notably, he stops by Io's sister's house because right before Io was about to die, she didn't call for Darrow, she called for her sister. And she said something to her sister that made her sister like wail in agony. And I feel like it's very obvious that she was pregnant at this point, but Darrow has not figured that out. He doesn't figure that out this entire book, by the way. And at this point, Io is already being framed as a martyr because when she's executed, there's a gold there who is like carrying it out. He's the one who gives the order. The TVs are starting to play her song. People are really feeling bad for her, and they are also not calling her Io, they're calling her Persephone. And we're starting to kind of get this persona around her, which is gonna serve as a symbol. But Darrow doesn't care about any of this, and he's on his way to the gallows to get killed because he, buried his wife in a treasonous place. And his uncle is walking with him, and he's like, I can't stop you from doing this, but I can at least walk with you. And his uncle is always drinking, and he gives Darrow his drink, and Darrow takes it, but he starts to he doesn't realize it at first, but there was definitely something laced in the drink. And then Darrow actually gets hung for his crimes. I forgot about this part too. But because his uncle had given him that sedative, he appears dead when he actually isn't. And so when he wakes up, he's like in captivity. Once Darrow fully comes to consciousness, he realizes that he has been taken by the Sons of Ares, aka the Rebellion. This is when Darrow goes through the classic hero moment of everything I knew was a lie. He actually gets to see a city full of other colors, the golds, the pinks, blues. Everybody is already on Mars. He has been lied to his entire life, albeit a short life so far. But I mean, even the adults in his colony truly believed that they were spending their entire life underground as sort of a noble act of preparing this world for other people, when in reality, nobody told them like, hey, good job, you did it. They just kept them as slaves this whole time. Darrow meets a carver who, in my opinion, is a crossover between Dr. Frankenstein and a plastic surgeon. His name is Mickey, and the Sons of Ares want him to carve Darrow to be a gold because they want Darrow to go and infiltrate the gold ranks. Mickey says it's impossible. This is going to require so many surgeries that no body can handle that much. But Darrow then completes a couple puzzles in front of him, and this makes Mickey realize okay, he has the problem-solving skills and intellect basically to take on the golds and maybe win, because they've never really had that before. It sounds like they have, tried multiple ways to do this. So Mickey says he will give it a try, but he really doesn't have any guarantees, and at this point Darrow still kind of wants to be dead, so he just kind of goes along with this, and he doesn't really have an escape plan, so he's been forced into trying. Insert months of agony. He has so many surgeries to replace almost every body part. Like, all of his bones have been replaced. At this point, it's a completely new body. It's just like attached to his brain. This is followed up with extreme physical therapy and just information download. They hook him up to machines and he wakes up knowing all of the philosophers. Wouldn't that be nice though? By the end of it, he's a completely different person. He is taller, faster, stronger. He's a gold, and he looks like one too. It's important that he, they replaced his eyeballs and his hair is different so that he can pass off as a gold, and it is really upsetting to him that if Io saw him now, she wouldn't even recognize him. He then has to go and try to get into the Institute. You have to pass several tests, which he passes with flying colors, pun intended, until he gets to the final test, which their final act before getting into the Institute is getting dragged out of bed, beaten, and thrown naked into a room with one other potential Institute student. And then they're told that one is going to get out alive. This part sucked. Like, Darrow has gone through so much, and now he is really going to have to murder someone. And he's placed up against this guy who's just, he seems so sweet. Like, he starts almost laughing. He's like, this is a joke. Like, there's no way they would do this. And he just seems like a really sweet person. His name is Julian. Darrow realizes immediately that this isn't a joke and starts to kind of try to get Julian to fight him. And Julian actually has the upper hand for a minute, but Darrow ends up winning. And if that wasn't bad enough, Darrow finds out that Cassius, Julian's older brother, has made it through this trial. And he can't tell him. Like, first of all, that would just already cause so many fights, and like, you don't want to be on somebody's bad side. But Darrow also isn't the only one not confessing to who he killed. There are a couple people who are proud of what they've done, but for the most part, everybody's really ashamed and they don't want to say, who they took out. The bad part is that Darrow becomes really good friends with Cassius. And it's killing him inside, but he realizes, like, I can never tell this guy what I did. And this is when the ultimate Hunger Games begins. And I am so serious about that. These kids get tossed onto a planet/arena ? And they have to fight it out to see who becomes king of the world. Basically the premise of the game. But it really isn't a game. Lots of kids get killed during this part. And I was kind of shocked that people would send their kids to join the Institute. It wasn't until like very late in the book that we found out that people get invited to join the Institute and you don't get to say no. You have to go through the testing. And because like once people get through this Institute, or as they go in, they have a more than 50% chance of dying. Half of them get taken out during that first trial, and then lots of people die during this game. I don't really want to go into tons and tons of the game stuff, like the particular strategies and stuff. I'm not really a war scenes type of person. It was interesting. Like, I wasn't bored the way I am sometimes bored during war scenes, but it's just also not my jam. However, what is super important during the games is that Darrow is starting to do really well. He's becoming one of the leaders, and he ends up with the responsibility to punish another student because they are sort of implementing their own law and order, and he has to figure out how he wants to punish Titus, who is another player in the game and part of like an enemy tribe. To us, Titus just kind of seems like a loose cannon. He just is overly violent and really loud, but it doesn't take Darrow long to sort of pinpoint the fact that Titus is also a red. He says some slang that only reds would use, and that's when Darrow's like, I'm not the only one here who's been carved. And Darrow starts to freak out because he's like, this guy is not in control of himself. If he blows his cover, then, what does that mean for me? Does that mean they're gonna start searching out for other reds? And this part didn't make tons of sense to me. Like, I do understand why he was thinking that, but at the same time, at this moment, Titus is the only other person whose motive we understand. A lot of these gold kids, there's all this politics and background that they have coming into the the game, and no one is really able to be fully sure of somebody else's motives. And having another Red, despite how kind of crazy he was, at least we know what he's sort of thinking. Not that I think Darrow should have told him that he was a Red. I think that would have been a bad idea. But I feel like he doesn't stop to consider the fact that Titus could be almost an ally, and instead, because he's so scared that his cover's gonna get blown, he kills Titus. Up to this point in the game, Cassius has gotten really close with Darrow. They are like brothers. Until Cassius gets a note that Julian was actually killed by Darrow. And then they duel. On top of the fact that they have all these different factions within the game, these two are now dueling. And Cassius wins. Darrow's left to die with this full sword wound. And honestly, the writing was so good in this book that I was just like physically feeling pain for him at this point. Like it was such a horrible, horrible time. He wakes up in a cave with Mustang by his side, which has sort of been like a background love interest for Darrow, but like very background. We really haven't had many even scenes with Mustang yet, but she tells Darrow that Cassius is now Primus of the game, and he's been unconscious for weeks. And Darrow meets Fitchner, which is one of the proctors, or like not referees, but kind of referees of the game. And he tells Darrow that the proctors have basically been bribed to let the Archgovernor's son win. Even though this is supposed to be like an even playing field for one of them to, you know, become the upper echelon of people within the Gold Society, it's all rigged and it's a political game. This makes Darrow very upset because he's played this before. As a Red, there was, you know, internal competitions for people to win food and resources and stuff, and he won it early in the game, or he should have won it, and it was given to somebody else because it was about politics. And he's like, this is just exactly the same thing, and you know what? No, I'm gonna win this time. And he starts making really big moves with Mustang by his side. They build an army, they start to gather food and resources and technology and all of this stuff. And it turns out that Darrow's really good at it, and he's really good at being a leader. I really liked seeing him learn, especially after he killed Titus. He kind of sees how people react to him and how people handle leaders acting in different circumstances, and we watch him actively implement what he's learning throughout this whole time, which really let us see him grow, but also kind of let us see him how he is, I don't want to say growing cold, because he remembers his mission the whole time, but just kind of becoming a more calculating person. And this whole time during the game, we've been hearing about this guy named the Jackal, who we later find out is the Archgovernor's son. We finally meet him. It takes so long for us to get to him, but we finally fight him, and Mustang gets captured during this battle. When Darrow frees her and tells her to go get the Jackal, one of the proctors comes and tells him like, oh, did you not realize that Mustang is the Jackal's twin sister? I think we got like a really short mention of Darrow thinking that the Jackal reminded him of somebody, but like not enough for us to have pre-pinpointed that that was the case. And so at this point, Darrow has basically given up on Mustang, you know, helping him, obviously, because family ties, and he ends up, you know, taking over another army or something, just more war stuff, and then he's preparing for this final battle because he's like, I am not letting these people win this political game. I'll go after the proctors if I have to. It's like Katniss shooting the arrow at the apple on the pig. Like, it's that same sentiment. And he kills one of the proctors. He kills Apollo. And then when he finds Mustang again, he's really surprised because Mustang brought her brother to him. Like, she turned on her brother. And that's sort of the last domino to fall. Because if Darrow has control of the Jackal, like, there's no question about who is Primus, like who wins this. For the most part, all things considered, this went really well, except for Pax did die, which was really upsetting. The whole time I didn't really care for him until like right before he gets killed by the Jackal, and it's brutal. Like, I felt so bad for him, and then I found out later that the reason that Pax died was because Pierce Brown just drew his name out of a hat. He knew somebody needed to die in that scene. He's like, I'll just pick it by random. The only people who weren't in the hat were Darrow and Mustang. But whatever. Outside of that death, and obviously like a few of the people that he knew died throughout the course of the game, things went Darrow's way. Like, not only did he make it through this game, he is like the leader. He's going to end up in a very good position when he comes out, and the better his position in a job situation, the more likely it's going to be for him to be able to, you know, cause some sort of revolution, stir up, or battle or something. The only stumbling block that we have is that when Darrow was fighting Apollo, he said like a term term, a gold would never use it. And he, luckily, like, we killed Apollo. So it almost feels like the evidence died with him. But because this is all like televised and recorded and stuff like that for, you know, the houses, there's a recording of him saying that. And Severo, who's this sneaky little guy who has always been on Darrow's side, has taken the footage and edited it out before anybody can find it. And Darrow doesn't know why he did it. And right now we can just like be thankful for it. I don't know if Severo's a red or not. I don't think he is. No, he isn't, because his dad's a gold. And we even talked to him. So Severo has to be a gold, but maybe he's like a sympathizer. And so we come out of this book with Darrow as Primus, and the arch governor, by the way, the guy who was there and sentenced his wife to death, recruits him as a lancer, which is like a super high up position. And now Darrow is placed directly in contact with the guy that he wants to kill more than anything. And that's the book. We spent so much time playing the Hunger Games, and those lasted for a full year. Like, we watched a full cycle of seasons through that games. What was your favorite part? Because when I try to consider what my favorite part is, nothing comes to mind. And it's not that this book wasn't good, because this book was really, really good. But I felt like it was dark the whole way through. Normally, my favorite part is where I had the most fun, and I wouldn't say that I had fun. And I can't really even hold on to a romance arc right now because Mustang seems sweet and all, but like me and Darrow, we are both still stuck on Io and we don't want to let it go. And at the very end of the book, Darrow is considering giving her a flower that is, you know, like the flowers he used to give his wife, and he just can't do it and he hasn't moved on. And when he sees Mustang, or he like, you know, starts to have feelings for her, he really just is reminded of Io, and he does have this really sad realization at the end of the book that Io has been gone longer than they were married. And I'm sure we'll move past that and there's going to be a big arc there for him. I don't know if it'll happen in Golden Sun. Like, now that I realize we have 5-6 books to get through, like, this could be a very long journey for him. And I know that I've read part of Golden Sun. I started it like a year ago and I got halfway through, but I'm gonna go back and restart because I don't remember what happens all that much. But I have heard so many good things about this series that I'm really determined to make it through this time. Please like this video if you liked it. Click subscribe if you want to talk about more book stuff. My name's Caitlin. Thanks for watching. Bye.